I'm your host, Juan Roque, as always, with my partner in crime, the Rykno, Ryan Knowles, and we are going to do Rykno's recap of the Illinois game. And Rykno, this was one hell of a football game. ASU went in there, took care of business. I know you're going to talk about some stats and some things that happened, but definitely a good start for Coach Cram. 2-0, Sun Devils. A lot of people didn't see this coming, Rykno.
No, not at all. But, I mean, ASU kind of had to go in and take care of business in this game. I mean, they really couldn't go out and pull a Washington State where the backup quarterback comes in, completely catches them off guard. They get out of their game plan, and that's kind of what happened because when the news came down that Nate Shieldhouse was not going to be starting in this game, you know, it kind of set off a couple bells and whistles with me. I mean, I was like, you know, going kind of, you know, harken back to that Washington State game when, you know, they had their backup quarterback coming in, he completely torched ASU.
That was a 600 passing yard,
yeah,
some crazy number
something
like that.
Ridiculous,
ruined
like
our season in essence.
Exactly. And you know, this was big time revenge for them. This is something that the players had talked about all week. The players who had played in that game in Champaign, they wanted revenge for that game. They felt like that game could have just as easily gone their way. So this was a game that I felt like they had to go out there and take care of business and put away, especially with no Nate Shieldhouse on the field. But you know, people can talk about, you know, ASU not, you know, winning this game because there was no Nate Shieldhouse. But you know what? Nate Shieldhouse does not play defense.
Absolutely. And there were some strong performances on both sides of the ball, right? Let's talk about some of those performances.
Yeah.
Especially on, like you mentioned, they had to stop ASU's offense, and they weren't able to.
Yeah,
what did ASU do on offense?
Yeah, on offense, 500 yards for the second straight game. 513 against the number 7th ranked in total defense from 2011 that returned 7 starters from
and 4 guys that will play in the NFL.
Yeah, probably, most likely, that's right. So, and 26 first downs, you know, 45 points. They basically took that talented front 7 that we had talked about last week. They basically took them out of play, running
That's
a
the
lot
O-line,
of
baby.
running,
Testament to the O-line.
Well, not even the O-line, just their scheming.
What do you mean not even the O-line?
Well,
of course the O-line.
The O-line was a big part of it. The O-line was a big part of it. I don't want to take anything away from the big hog while he's up front. But, you know, they used a lot of misdirection. They used a lot of screens, a lot of bootlegs. You know, got Taylor Kelly out of the pocket where he's comfortable throwing on the run. And, you know, they gave open receivers downfield the opportunity to do something after the catch, which I thought was something huge. And, you know, a guy that we had talked about who was an impact in the NAU game, Chris Coyle. It's good to have a tight end.
I love having the tight end, man. I'll tell you what, I am a fan of the tight end.
We knew that
when
guy.
You think of Ozzie Newsome, Todd Heap, and those guys, and to see Tom Coyle just do what he did. Chris Coyle, sorry.
Yeah, we knew what he could do. I mean, we saw some flashes even in Dennis Erickson's offense. You know, he was open at times. He could make plays down the field. He just wasn't given a whole lot of opportunity. He was usually a glorified.
Right. It was an H-back.
Yeah,
basically a fullback is what it was.
Blocker, pretty much, for the most part. But in this game, 10 receptions, 131 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, those are big-time stats. Yeah, he definitely deserves a salute.
Mr. Coyle, we salute you.
Yes, sir. And then Michael Eubank coming in. I mean, he's basically coming in as like a different change of pace to Taylor Kelly.
It does change it up, and you can see the offense is different when he's in there.
A lot of times when a backup quarterback comes in like that, he's usually a runner. I mean, he's usually solely a runner, but he was 5 of 5 for 69 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he also ran for 51 yards and he ran for another touchdown.
Definitely looks the part, Rykno. He looks good out there.
Yeah, he came in and definitely provided a good change of pace. Definitely gave Illinois a different look, something else for them to game plan around, and it played in their favor. And then Jamal Miles coming back with 124 all-purpose yards. That guy just does it all. I would have liked to see him.
You've been a Miles fan since last season, Rykno. You've loved Jamal Miles, and so do I. But he's your guy.
Yeah, who does it?
That's your guy.
I would have liked to see him have a few more yards on the punt return. He fair catched a couple I felt like he could have taken. But, you know, and just, you know, then we're getting into the negative here. Those 2 red zone fumbles. He did have that one fumble around the 10-yard line. Cam Marshall had that other one on the
goal
first
line,
possession.
right on the first possession. That happened right in front of us when we were sitting.
And that was both of them happened right in front of us, which was very hard to take. But luckily, they were able to bounce back, not let that get to them. The defense came up huge in that game. I mean, you know, transitioning here to the defense, they forced 3 turnovers, had 6 sacks. You know, made the Illini really a one-dimensional team, and they did run for 231 yards, but when you're a one-dimensional team and you're running the ball, you know, 40, 50 times a game, that's going to happen sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But only 100 passing yards. So, I mean, they really... It was 101,
I believe.
Yeah, it was 101, yeah. But they really took
Can't forget that one,
They really took it to Riley O'Toole and Miles Osei. I mean, you know...
Which we said they were going to do.
Yeah, yeah,
Which we said if Riley O'Toole was in this game, they had to attack him.
They really pinned their ears back and made them beat them down the field with their arm, which is not something they were able to do. I know on that one of the interceptions, they got to Osei, and they hit him right as he was throwing the ball and made that throw chain, you know, kind of float on him, and then Alden Darby was able to pick it off. So, I mean, it's plays like that that really made the difference, I feel like, in this game. Just getting into some of the stats here, Will Sutton was huge in this game.
Absolutely. Looks a lot better, slimmer,
tackles,
he's stronger, and he's faster.
3 tackles for loss and a sack. Carl Bradford was another guy.
He's a guy you've been high on since spring football, Rykno. You've liked Carl Bradford. That's one of Rykno's guys.
Yeah, the devil backer, coming in with 2.5 sacks. He was a force in the pass rush. You
don't use that word often, Rykno.
No,
you don't use that word often. He does not use that word often. For him to use force, the kid was playing some serious ball.
And another guy I was really high on, who was my really key player to this game, was Chris Young. And it seemed like he was in the backfield like almost every play.
Right.
He had a couple tackles for loss. He had half a sack. He was huge in this game. Really disrupted what Illinois was trying to do.
Is it safe to say, Rykno? I don't mean to cut you off here, but
no.
After everything that we talked about last season with the linebacking core, with McGee being hurt, inconsistencies with players that were supposed to be stars, and I'm not even going to get into a perfect bashing contest because it's over with. He's with the Bengals. Good luck. God bless you. But this linebacking crew, to me, has improved.
Very much so, yeah. And you look at, and then you go into just the depth of it all, especially when you look at a guy like Carlos Mendoza, who was able to come in as a true freshman, starting a game in a position that he really had not practiced out of, because they moved Anthony Jones to the weak side linebacker after Brandon McGee was out. That's Brandon McGee's spot in the weak side. Put Carlos Mendoza in the middle, and he dropped back into pass coverage, and he looked like a real pro out there.
Absolutely.
Those 2 interceptions. That's designed. That's designed for that to happen with the middle linebacker.
The second one, he snatched the ball out of the air.
Oh yeah,
that was just beautiful.
Yeah, that was absolutely great. And he came up with 3 tackles as well. He was very huge in both facets of the defense. I felt like he played a complete game. And it's so tough to lose him for the season now, because he had separated his shoulder. He's got a bone chip in there now. He's got a medical red shirt. He still has 4 more years of eligibility.
Yeah, those bone chips are tough because they got to cut it open. They got to get it out. Now he has to rehab.
It's very tough to lose a guy like that
who's
coming off just such a huge game. His first game starting as a true freshman, a guy that the coaches have been so high on in camp that it's so tough to lose a guy.
Well,
like
then those shoulder injuries suck, Rykno, because they got to cut through a lot of muscle to get into the joint. It's a very invasive surgery, and when pitchers go through it, football players go through it. It's a long rehab, and to me, it's not so much the procedure as the body having to heal itself from such an invasive procedure with that type of surgery.
Yeah, and
they're cutting through a lot of layers of muscle.
They're having some depth issues right now on defense right now, and it's very tough to see because they're moving guys.
DeAndre Lewis.
Yeah, that's right. With Devon Span. With Devon Span and Rashad Wadoud both out for the year. They're moving Kevin Anderson, a former receiver, now DeAndre Lewis over to DB. They might get some playing time against Mizzou, so it'll be
absolutely.
Interesting to see.
And we do wish DeAndre Lewis the best of luck to you on the defensive side of the ball. We know you're going to make a difference. You're a football player. Glad that you're healed up. Of course, folks, we always welcome you to join the conversation on our On the Line page. Again, hit us up.